Most men lose the game without even realizing it. It's not when they get hit, it's when they react first. Because reacting isn't responding, it's surrendering. The moment you justify yourself, defend your actions, or snap back out of impulse, you're giving the other person exactly what they wanted, proof that they got to you. From that point on, they're in control. You lose your rhythm, your posture, your advantage. And it all happens in a split second, not by accident, but by design. You were trained to react like that. You were told that staying silent is weakness, that if you don't speak up, you're guilty. That silence equals submission. But the real world, the one where respect is built in seconds, plays by a different code. The man who rushes to respond always gives himself away. The one who watches in silence, he controls the board. You don't need to speak faster. You need to know when to say nothing, because it's in that quiet space that your enemy starts revealing more than he should. Silence, contrary to what they taught you, isn't emptiness. It's control. What you're about to learn isn't self-help. It's strategy. You'll understand why most men who look strong on the outside are still slaves on the inside, and how to flip that reality without shouting, arguing, or explaining yourself to people who already made up their minds. The shift starts internally. Once that happens, your posture changes, your presence becomes heavier, and your response unpredictable. And in a world where everyone's constantly reacting, being unpredictable becomes your sharpest weapon. This video is for the ones who are tired of wasting energy trying to be understood, for the men who always feel one step behind, always explaining, always being pushed to react. Here you'll learn why never reacting first isn't a weakness, it's dominance. And those who dominate never play on someone else's terms. They don't rush to defend themselves, they observe, they wait, and when the moment comes, they strike in silence. It all starts with understanding why we react in the first place. In tense moments, instinct speaks before reason. It acts for you without permission. He's been there. Stuck at a red light, someone cuts him off, and instantly his horn becomes a weapon. Or during a meeting, someone throws a nasty comment and the sharp reply escapes before his brain catches up. In that split second, the attacker smiles because he got what he wanted. And most people never notice they've already lost by reacting. They handed over control without even realizing. Reacting isn't just answering, and it's letting someone else set the rhythm. It's like jumping into a fire someone else started, just to prove you're not afraid to burn. And the worst part? That reaction rarely solves anything. It only exposes your weakness, your instability, your lack of control. That's why real players never move too fast. The ones in power watch first, always. Even when the anger rises, the face stays calm. Because it's not about what you feel, it's about what you let them see. Picture a chessboard. The opponent attacks, aggressive and emotional, but you breathe, you stay still. Then you move, slow and precise. That's the kind of control he started developing after realizing how often he gave away power. By over-explaining, overreacting, over-talking. He didn't learn this from a book. He learned it by getting burned, again and again, until he saw the pattern. When you react first, you've already lost. But the hardest part isn't staying silent. It's dealing with the discomfort of not explaining yourself, of not yelling, "But I'm right," because we're raised to chase validation. And the truth is, the more urgent your reaction feels, the more it proves that person still has emotional access to you. And that is dangerous. But there's a better, colder way to deal with these moments. And it begins with what comes next. Few things are more destabilizing than well-placed silence. It's uncomfortable, unpredictable, even threatening. When everyone expects a reaction and you just stay still, something shifts. It's like suddenly the other person has to face their own echo, and that's more disturbing than any reply. He's felt it during heated arguments, where he simply folded his arms, took a deep breath, and said nothing. That one move flipped the entire dynamic. The other person stumbled, expecting war but facing a mirror instead. True silence isn't absence, it's an invisible weapon. It creates tension without raising your voice, demands respect without asking for it, and draws lines without needing permission. Think of a lion. It doesn't roar before it strikes. It watches, waits, calculates, and when it moves, it's already too late. Those who master silence master the battlefield, because noise reveals your strategy, silence reveals nothing. And that's exactly what makes it so terrifying. No one knows what's coming next. There's a line he lives by. Those who explain expose themselves, those who stay silent let the others get lost. And it's painfully true. Explaining too much is like pleading innocence to someone who's already made up their mind. It's a trap. Let them drown in their own assumptions. Silence gives the enemy room to speak too much, show too much. And the more they talk, the more they reveal where their fear lives. Silence isn't passivity, it's control, but it has to be used with precision. Next time someone tries to provoke you, just try it. Breathe, lock eyes, say nothing. If anything, raise an eyebrow, offer a calm half smile, and walk away. The impact will be louder than anything you could have said, but it takes a rare kind of strength to do that, a cold focus that few men ever develop. And when you start combining silence with calculated response, that's when the strategy sharpens. In conflict, most people try to win by volume. They raise their voices, defend themselves, justify everything. But he learned, through time, mistakes, and repetition, that real power doesn't come from force. It comes from restraint. Once, in a room full of people, someone tried to discredit him publicly. It was the kind of moment that begged for a comeback. But all he said was, "Interesting perspective," and then silence. It wasn't arrogance. It was calculation. The other guy lost his pace, and everyone else paid attention. Responding with calm is like returning a strike with the blade still sheathed. It shows you have the weapon, but you don't need to use it. And that's more intimidating than any aggressive reply. He started using short phrases as tactical responses. Noted. Makes sense. Or just a soft smile, a steady gaze. These gestures say more than full speeches ever could. Because what stays hidden behind neutrality shakes people more than an outburst ever would. Of course, this takes practice. It's not easy to bite your tongue when your ego's bleeding, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. He started practicing even in casual conversations. Someone threw a passive-aggressive comment. He smiled. Someone tried to provoke him just to test his balance. Got it. And moved on. Over time, something strange started happening. The room shifted. People began thinking twice before trying to rattle him, because they realized it didn't work. That kind of posture builds a reputation. The words you choose, unto it or don't choose, become a mirror of your inner strength. And the deeper you go in mastering this art, the more you realize not every battle deserves a reaction. Sometimes silence is the answer. Sometimes a cold phrase ends the war before it starts. But it's always your choice. And that choice begins shaping something even more powerful, the way you respond when the game gets emotional. It's easy to stay calm around strangers. The real test is when the pain comes from someone who knows your weaknesses. He went through that, during the end of a relationship, hearing accusations that would have destroyed him years ago. But something in him had already shifted. He didn't respond, didn't argue, just looked. That silence wasn't coldness, it was strength. And ironically, it was in that moment of restraint that he regained what he was losing, his self-respect. Relationships are the perfect stage for power games disguised as love. A little comment here, a provocation there. It all seems small until you realize you're always reacting, always explaining, always proving your point. But when you break that cycle and respond with calm, something powerful happens. The other person loses the weapon. Because without your reaction, there's no drama. And without drama, there's no control. The one who stops feeding the fire rewrites the story. He met a guy, let's call him Pedro. He went through a brutal breakup. His ex did everything, pushed buttons, cried, provoked, and Pedro didn't react. Not because he didn't feel, but because he knew that any emotional reaction would make him vulnerable. He stayed silent and came out stronger, rebuilt his life without needing to scream his side of the story. Today he inspires other men to do the same, guard their emotional core like sacred ground. If you want to know where a man's true power lives, watch how he responds when he's hurt. If he explodes, he's still trapped. If he responds with balance, he's breaking free. And if he just watches, he's already learned that someone else's chaos doesn't have to become his battleground. But the game doesn't end there. Because self-control isn't enough. You also need to build something deeper, a reputation that stands in silence. There's a brutal difference between being liked and being respected. But most men still confuse the two. For years, he tried being the nice guy, helpful, polite, always available. He did everything to keep the peace. But deep down, he felt people didn't take him seriously. Then it hit him. When you constantly try to be liked, you become predictable. And predictable men don't command respect. Because to please everyone, you have to shrink yourself constantly. Their strong reputation is born in silence. It's not built on compliments. It's forged through absence. While the nice guy explains everything, apologizes for existing, and chases approval, the man with a firm posture moves quietly. Not because he wants to be feared, but because he knows respect is rooted in unpredictability. People respect what they can't fully figure out, and that kind of reputation doesn't need words. It demands presence. Picture two cops. One's friendly, cracks jokes, chats with everyone. The other walks in silent, steady, eyes sharp, and no one dares push him. Which one do you respect more? It's not about arrogance. It's about energy. That weight in the air before a single word is spoken. He started cultivating that energy when he realized the less he said, the more they listened. And sometimes disappearing was more strategic than arguing. The nice guy is too accessible, always explaining, always opening up, always trying to convince. But those playing the real game know this. Powerful reputations are built with few words, limited access, and a silence that carries weight. That's the kind of presence that opens doors, or terrifies those who thought about closing them. But to reach that level, you have to develop something even deeper than image, something internal, a silent strength that redefines how you move and how little they can shake you. There's a common mistake, confusing emotional coldness with lack of empathy. But they're completely different. Emotional coldness is about being centered. It's staying intact even when everything around you is trying to pull you apart. He's been misunderstood for this before. They said he was distant, heartless. But what no one saw was the effort it took not to drown in his own reactions. Because if he let the impulse take over, he'd become a prisoner, not a commander, of his own mind. Mastering your reactions doesn't mean turning to stone. It means learning how to feel without exploding, letting the anger rise, but not letting it drive, noticing the provocation, but refusing the invitation. Carl Jung once said, "He who reacts is possessed. He who observes is free." That phrase became a turning point in his life. Every time someone tried to throw him off balance, he remembered, real power doesn't come from looking strong. It comes from not needing to prove anything, not even to yourself. Some people think feeling everything is a sign of authenticity, but that's another trap. If you feel everything and react to everything, you're a slave to the environment, constantly swinging between rage, guilt, anxiety, desire, like an emotional puppet. But the centered man, he feels, then chooses. He chooses when to speak, when to leave, when to do nothing. And in that ability to choose, real power is born, because emotional freedom is protection in disguise. He started noticing this in small things, a passive-aggressive message, a cold look, a sarcastic tone. Before, all of it would have gotten under his skin. Now it teaches him. What used to trigger him now just reveals data. What used to hurt now informs. That's the switch. Stop reacting like a victim. Start moving like a strategist. And when that transformation happens, your presence begins to speak long before you do. With time, he realized he didn't have to say anything anymore. Just showing up was enough. His presence spoke louder than words. The way he walked calmly, how he listened without interrupting, the way he locked eyes without flinching, all of it created an atmosphere that demanded respect before he even made a move. Like that general who enters the room in silence, and suddenly everyone straightens their posture. Not out of fear, out of recognition. This aura isn't built on arrogance. It comes from accumulated self-mastery, from emotional battles no one else saw, From arguments where he chose silence, from attacks he absorbed without striking back, from days when the world was falling apart, but inside he stood firm. That kind of silent solidity turns into something people feel. Even if they can't explain it, they sense that something in you and is different, a type of power that doesn't need to announce itself. And there's no shortcut. It's repetition. Daily decisions. It's waking up and choosing, again, not to react like you used to. Choosing not to explain what doesn't deserve an explanation. Choosing to walk tall, even when misunderstood. Over time, it reshapes your identity. You're no longer the man who reacts. You become the man they watch. Because when your posture speaks for you, people start measuring their words before they speak to you. And maybe the strangest part of it all is that the more unshakable you become, the less you need to be seen. Real respect doesn't need a microphone, and real authority doesn't need to shout. Time turns you into someone who speaks less, moves less, but is remembered more. And when you reach that level of presence, that's when everything begins. You can keep reacting the same way you always have, trying to win by yelling louder, over-explaining, defending yourself to people who already made up their minds. Or you can start flipping the game in silence. The power you're looking for isn't hiding in your next clever comeback. It's in the next moment you choose not to react. Because the man who controls his emotions doesn't need to control anyone else. He simply becomes untouchable, and that's why he's respected. But tell me, how many times have you regretted saying too much? How many times has a quick reaction dragged you back to a place you swore you'd never return to? If you're tired of that, maybe it's time to try something different. To stop explaining. To step out of the emotional trap they keep pushing you into. The question is simple. Will you keep playing their game, or make them play yours? Drop a comment below. What situation made you realize that reacting only made things worse? I want to know. Where in your life do you need this kind of control the most right now? Relationships, work, family? Write it down. When you speak it, you start to see it clearly. And if this video hit you deep, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications and get ready. Because here every video shows you what they don't want you to see and prepares you for a game most men aren't ready to play.